Clarifications, please. Ms. Nadia Samdin.
Thank you, Chairman. Then thank you to Minister Grace Fu for giving the update on the progress of the SG Eco Fund. I'd like to ask and clarify what environmental and community outcomes are tracked as part of the fund to ensure the effectiveness of the fund, and are these mapped towards the Singapore Green Plan? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that question. The Eco Fund, actually it is designed to allow very broad-based participation, and it is made very inclusive for different types of groups. It can be individual, it can be businesses, it can be community, grassroots organizations, or charities to participate. And actually it allows groups to be participating in a wide area of interest, stretches across all the 5 pillars of the Singapore Green Plan. And I think the key indication that we're looking for in all these groups is whether they're able to mobilize the community around them. And that's, I think, is the key they're looking for. Thank you.
Mrs. Saktiandi Supat.
Chairman, I'd like to thank SM and ministers for the very detailed answers to some of our cards. I have 2 clarifications. First is in regards to the risk-weighted asset question that I asked in my card. With the efforts to incentivize carbon credits and the ecosystem, may I ask Minister for MTI, Minister Gan, whether the efforts to incentivize by introducing risk-weighted assets which are a bit lower for FIs, for example, to hold on to carbon credits. As of now, I think carbon credits is regarded as high risk, and the weights in the risk-weighted asset is quite high. So that's my first question. Second is, first I'd like to thank Minister for Transport, Mr. Iswaran, for sharing that the cutoff for EV cars for COE Cat A has been increased to 110 kilowatts, thus benefiting 10 cars. But my question is in regards to my card about the taxes, road tax for EVs. Can Minister share a bit more how we can enhance this incentivization of the rebates and rebate structure for EV cars on the road tax front? And second, the other one is on the motor cars. What monitoring developments and assessments will be needed to ensure that early adoption incentive for electric motorcycles can be done earlier than later? Thank you, Minister.
Sir, thank you. I thank Mr. Saktianti for the question. In fact, banks do have exposure to carbon credits, for example, from trading in carbon credits arising from a market intermediary. Banks, therefore, can be exposed to the risk of losses arising from the market movements in the price of carbon credits. Under the MAS Bank Capital Framework, banks' exposure to carbon credits are treated similarly as exposures to commodities. These attract a risk weight of 187.5%. The risk weight is agreed internationally in the capital standards promulgated by the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision and has been calibrated very carefully based on the demonstrated riskiness of the commodities and carbon credits. So we will have to be very careful in adjusting the risk rating for some of these assets because it may inadvertently expose the banks and financial institutions to unacceptable risk. And we will continue to work with financial institutions to see how we can better quantify the risk and so that we can manage the risk rating better.
Chairman, I thank the member for his questions. If I may take the second first on electric motorcycles. As I said earlier in my speech, the technology is still evolving, different models, different types of solutions. So we are tracking this very closely, and we will make an assessment of the need to put in place any specific measures that might facilitate earlier or quicker adoption of such e-motorcycles. The member's first question was around incentives for EV cars, and in particular, the road tax angle. So let me address this in three parts. First, road tax. As the member would be aware, last year we made a series of changes to the road tax treatment of EVs. And as a result of that, the road tax of payable by mass to mid-market EVs is generally in line with their internal combustion engine equivalents. And I think that does not seem to be an impediment per se, but we will continue to monitor this and see if there's a need for further tweaks. Second, we've also introduced the upfront ownership cost adjustments through the early adoption incentive, which when combined with the VES, the Vehicle Emission Scheme, can result in a reduction of up to $45,000 in the upfront cost, depending on the OMV of the car. And so I think that is quite substantial. So when we put these together with the recurrent costs and the likely savings in recurrent costs of running an EV, because the maintenance tends to be less costly and so on, we think that on balance, the economics works in favor of EV adoption, or at least it doesn't work against it. But we will continue to monitor this because this is an evolving space. But if I may make a final point, Mr. Chairman, I think it's important to bear in mind that EVs are first and foremost Vs. They are vehicles. And that means our policies on car ownership, usage, and indeed the emphasis on a car-light strategy and greater use of public transport, those must remain as important principles that guide our larger transport policies. So we want to encourage the adoption of EVs in the context of our larger green transition, but we also want to ensure that where we can and where it is also within the ken of our people, greater transition to the use of public transport and less carbon-emitting modes of transportation.
Ms. Cheryl Chan.
Chairman, I would like to seek two clarifications from Minister Gan. The first one is on the projects of the Sustainable Jurong Island project. Because currently now most of all the projects and the carbon emissions is based on disclosures by the industry, all the companies. I would like to understand from Minister how we will be tracking this so that we can validate the carbon emissions that they said have been reduced over time. That's the first. The second question is with regards to the new technologies that we're going to bring across, whether on Jurong Island or in Singapore, how will we be doing this sandbox of the new pilots? Would Minister actually elaborate further how this would be possible so that actually people with good proposals would put them up? Thanks.
Thank you. In fact, I mentioned this in my speech that as we embark on projects on reducing our carbon emission as well as new projects like carbon capture and so on, it is very important for us to develop our capability in tracking and verification and auditing some of these carbon reduction that they claim. And in time to come, we will work with various industries to set standards and to work out a system where we can verify the actual carbon emission and the carbon savings that they have achieved. So it's something that we will continue to work with industry and to develop the standards for that. And I think Ms. Cheryl Chan also asked about how do we embark on the sandbox projects. I think EDB and ESG are working very closely with industries and including A-Star and looking at the various new technologies, new solutions, and we will welcome industries, companies, or researchers who are interested in the respective areas of green projects to discuss with us, to approach us, whether it's ESG or for the small and medium enterprises. I think it would be easier for them to approach the ESG to talk about potential projects and the various schemes that will be available that they can tap on to embark on these projects. And for the larger projects like CCUS and so on, they can talk to EDB as well as A-Star, which has a center which I mentioned that I've set up with regard to carbon utilization and technology. Thank you.
Mr. Lewison.
Thank you, sir. And I thank SMF for sharing that we'll be doing some consultations when it comes to the net zero emissions. Could I ask that we consult with the NGOs and activists sooner rather than later? Because I think they shared with me that they were consulted rather late when it came to the carbon tax increase. Thank you.
Ms. Polisan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two questions. First one is for SM. SM mentioned that out of about 5,000 companies now actually given their commitment towards decarbonization solution, I'd like to know how many out of these 5,000 are actually present in Singapore, and what kind of contribution would they be able to help us in our decarbonization efforts locally. And on the second question, SM and Minister Gan also shared about some of these new and nascent technologies such as carbon capture and hydrogen that we are now studying to open up our own technologies for future renewable energies. So I'd like to understand more about do we have any plans to devote more of our resources, our budget, to investment in such energy, new nascent energy and technologies, and also some of these facilities will require also large amounts of land to build these facilities. Do we have plans to adjust our land use plans to accommodate such facilities? Thank you.
The first question. I don't have a count of how many of the 5,000 who have committed to net zero in COP26 are actually in Singapore. But we do know that there are many companies in Singapore, international companies, and major ones. And I think Minister Gan has given the example of Shell, which is a major E&C company, which has made a commitment to go to net zero by 2050, Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3. And they have been a long time resident here in Singapore, contributing greatly to our economy, and we will partner with them. A number of other companies, ExxonMobil, for example, has committed to going net zero in its operations by 2050. They are very interested in CCU as a technology. Both companies are very interested in developing SAF, sustainable aviation fuels and other forms. And so these provide very good partnerships for us. There are other important companies in Singapore like Neste, which is a major producer of biodiesel. In fact, it's the biggest producer. We have one of the biggest plants in the world, if not the biggest plant in the world. And they have expressed an interest in expanding their range of products here in Singapore. So there are a number of useful opportunities. Minister Gan may want to add to that.
I think I mentioned this in my remarks earlier on, that we have actually devoted quite a lot of resources into the development of technology, R&D, and so on. For example, I mentioned that last year we awarded $55 million of R&D projects under the Low Carbon Energy Research Funding Initiative to pursue R&D in low-carbon technologies such as hydrogen, I mentioned. And we are also consolidating the various institutions under A-STAR so that we can create greater synergy among these research efforts to focus on investment in the development of this technology. But I must add that many of these technologies are still very nascent and they are in the developmental stage, and we will need to continue to remain nimble and monitor the development, keep pace with the development not only in Singapore but globally, and explore collaboration with the international institutions, research institutions, so that we are able to keep tab on the latest development in the technology and seek a collaboration in developing some of these capabilities. And I also agree with the member that it is important for us to also invest in building capability among our people. That's why I also mentioned about training and upgrading. I think Minister Chan Chun Sing talked about education. How do we equip our people to be able to invest their resources into research and development, and also to capitalize on the employment opportunities that we brought about in some of these emerging technologies.
Ms. Fumiha.
Thank you, Chairman. I have one clarification for Minister Gan. My question relates to the new enterprise financing scheme, GREEN, to support local firms with a range of financing needs. As I said, despite the generous government risk sharing at 70%, the industry, mainly coming from the SMEs, that the interest rate and loan terms offered by the participating financial institutions is actually not much different from commercial loans. So I would like to ask the Minister if ESG would look into the feedback from the industry for FIs to look into more favorable terms for the EFS, or Enterprise Financing Scheme Green, to spur adoption. This is especially if government's risk sharing at 70%. Thank you.
Thank you. The short answer is yes, we will take into feedback from industries and to continue to refine our various schemes, including EFS Green, so that they are relevant, they are able to help the industries in embarking on this sustainability journey. But we also have to bear in mind that we have to also ensure that these schemes and these projects make sense and are viable, so that we have a sustainable outcome for the sustainable projects.
Any more clarifications? Happy to take clarifications. No? Okay. Mr. Luism, would you like to withdraw your amendment?
Sir, our words in this House matter, and so do our deeds. And let me start by thanking members for their passionate speeches for our planet, for sustainability, and for the health and livelihood of our people, and for SMS Amy's most favorite topic of hawker culture. I also thank the government for their strong, concrete, and very significant steps forward in tackling climate change, in ensuring that we live and breathe sustainability, and that we have fresh air to breathe. My most favorite and SMS Amy's second favorite topic of second-hand smoke. But as some of you might realize, many of us are wearing green in this House today. In fact, it's my first time not wearing my white shirt in this House. And I should thank Speaker for also greening Parliament, for turning up the heat during our debates in this chamber, and by that I mean turning up the temperature in the aircon, and also phasing out the use of single-use plastic bottles. I thank him for all these steps in greening Parliament. But we're not just wearing green today. I'm glad, and from hand on heart, we are truly going green. And for that, I thank SM Teo, Min Grace, Min Desmond, Min Chan, Min Iswaran, and Min Gan for their strong leadership and commitment on this issue, and all the other POHs from the different ministries and stat boards for all their hard work and dedication. And with that, sir, I beg leave to withdraw my amendment.
So amidst a 24 degrees Celsius setting, are honourable members given leave to withdraw the amendment? The question is that the sum, I think the leave of the majority is given, the amendment is withdrawn. The question is that the sum of $1,988,890,700 for head L send part of the main estimates. As many as are of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is that the sum of $1,012,526,600 for head L send part of the development estimates. As many as are of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.